In the late summer of 1988, a quiet community in the American Southwest was shaken by a disappearance that would haunt investigators and families for decades. The case of Tara Calico remains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries in modern American criminal history. What began as an ordinary morning bike ride soon turned into a tragedy that left a family searching for answers and a town burdened with rumors, suspicions, and unanswered questions. Tara Calico was born on February 28, 1969, in the small city of Belen in the state of New Mexico, United States. She grew up in a close-knit family surrounded by people who cared deeply about her. Tara lived with her mother, Tara Calico, and her stepfather, John. Although her biological parents had separated, her father, David, lived nearby and remained part of her life. Tara also had siblings, and those who knew her often described the family as loving and supportive. From an early age, Tara was known for her independence and discipline. Friends and relatives remembered her as a young woman who liked structure and organization. She often made detailed lists of tasks she needed to complete during the day. Every evening or early morning, she would write down everything she planned to do the following day. These lists included her college classes, work shifts, chores at home, and even personal activities such as exercise. At the time of her disappearance, Tara was a sophomore student at the University of New Mexico's Valencia campus. In addition to her studies, she worked part-time at the First National Bank in Belen. Balancing school and work required dedication, but Tara handled it well. She was responsible and motivated, and many believed she had a promising future ahead of her. Outside of school and work, Tara enjoyed an active lifestyle. One of her favorite routines was cycling. Several times a week, she would ride long distances on her bicycle, sometimes traveling more than 30 miles during a single ride. Her usual route followed a stretch of rural highway south of Belen along New Mexico State Road 47. The landscape there consisted of open farmland, desert brush, and long, quiet roads that stretched across the horizon. Sometimes Tara's mother would accompany her on these rides. However, just a few weeks before the events of September 1988, Patty experienced something that deeply unsettled her. While riding with Tara along the same route, a vehicle drove past them extremely close. The driver slowed down and appeared to circle back toward them. The encounter made Patty uncomfortable and frightened. After that incident, she decided she no longer felt safe riding on that road. Patty urged Tara to stop using that route as well. She warned her daughter that the isolated highway might not be safe. She even suggested that Tara carry pepper spray if she insisted on riding there again. But Tara, like many young people her age, did not seem overly concerned. She believed she would be fine and continued her cycling routine. On the morning of September 20th, 1988, Tara prepared for another bike ride. It was a Tuesday, and the weather conditions were suitable for cycling. That day, Tara was 19 years old. She dressed casually for her ride, wearing a white pair of shorts with green stripes along the sides and a work shirt with the name of the bank printed across the front. She also wore white ankle socks and her favorite turquoise-colored tennis shoes. Whenever Tara rode her bike alone, she brought along her portable cassette player, a yellow Sony Walkman. Music kept her entertained during the long ride and helped pass the time as she pedaled through the quiet countryside. Before leaving the house that morning, Tara briefly spoke with her mother. During the conversation, she mentioned something that would later replay endlessly in Patty's mind. Tara told her mother that if she had not returned home by noon, Patty should come looking for her. At the time, the comment did not seem alarming. Tara had plans later that day, including a tennis game with her boyfriend, so perhaps she simply wanted to make sure she would not be late. It was also possible she was thinking about practical issues such as a flat tire or mechanical trouble with the bicycle. Shortly after the conversation, Tara left home and began her ride. Several people saw her along the route that morning. Neighbors and truck drivers traveling along the highway later recalled seeing a young woman riding a bright neon pink mountain bike. The bicycle was distinctive and easy to notice against the dusty desert landscape. Witnesses reported that Tara appeared to be cycling normally. Nothing seemed unusual at first, but one witness later provided a detail that investigators would find deeply troubling. A man named Baron Freeman reported that while driving along the highway, he passed Tara on the road. As he did, he noticed a light-colored pickup truck traveling extremely close behind her. The vehicle appeared to be from the 1950s and had a homemade white camper shell attached to the back. Freeman also believed there were two men inside the truck. According to his statement, the truck was only a few feet behind Tara's bicycle, almost as if it were following or escorting her. The situation made him uneasy. He later described the feeling as a sudden sense that something was not right. Unfortunately, at the time, he continued driving. The last confirmed sighting of Tara occurred around 11:45 a.m., roughly 2 miles south of her home along Highway 47. After that moment, no one would see her again. When noon arrived and Tara had not returned home, Patty began to feel concerned. Remembering her daughter's words from earlier that morning, she decided to drive the same route Tara usually followed. Patty drove slowly along the highway, calling out her daughter's name and scanning the roadside for any sign of an accident. She looked for a damaged bicycle, tire tracks, or anything unusual along the shoulder of the road, but she found nothing. As the hours passed, Patty's anxiety grew stronger. She continued driving the route again and again, hoping to find some clue that would explain where her daughter had gone. By around 2 o'clock that afternoon, the fear in her heart had grown too strong to ignore. Realizing something was terribly wrong, Patty went directly to the police and reported Tara missing. Local authorities responded quickly. Deputies from the Valencia County Sheriff's Office organized a search operation. Volunteers from the community joined the effort, and trained search dogs were brought in to help locate any trace of Tara. Despite hours of searching, the first day produced no results. The following morning, September 21st, the search teams returned to the area. It was during this second day that investigators finally discovered the first pieces of evidence. Along the roadway, searchers began to find fragments of a yellow Sony Walkman scattered across the pavement. The plastic casing had been broken apart, and small pieces lay across the asphalt. Later that same day, Patty herself discovered something even more personal. She found a cassette tape that Tara often listened to during her bike rides. The tape had been damaged, its plastic case cracked open, and the magnetic tape pulled loose. The fragments were spread across the road. Investigators soon noticed something else nearby: bicycle tire tracks that suddenly veered sharply off the paved highway and into the soft dirt shoulder. Close to these tracks were marks in the gravel and disturbed soil, suggesting that some kind of struggle or sudden stop may have taken place. Based on this evidence, investigators concluded that Tara had not simply run away or left voluntarily. Instead, they began to treat the case as an involuntary disappearance, possibly involving abduction. Patty believed her daughter may have intentionally dropped or thrown the Walkman and cassette tape onto the road in an attempt to leave a trail behind. Over the next several days, search operations expanded across the surrounding desert and farmland. Volunteers, police officers, and additional K-9 teams searched the area extensively. Despite their efforts, neither Tara nor her bright pink bicycle was ever found. Meanwhile, investigators began interviewing witnesses who had been driving along Highway 47 that morning. Several people reported seeing Tara riding her bicycle. Even more concerning, multiple witnesses also reported seeing the same suspicious pickup truck traveling close behind her. These witness statements quickly became one of the most important leads in the case. Using the descriptions provided, investigators created a composite sketch of the suspected driver. According to the witnesses, the man appeared to be white or light-skinned, somewhere between his late 30s and mid-40s. He was described as approximately 5 feet 9 inches to 6 feet tall and weighing around 190 to 210 pounds. The sketch was released to the public in hopes that someone might recognize the man or the truck. Within days, police received more than 100 tips from people who believed they might have information about the suspect. However, none of the leads produced a definitive breakthrough. As weeks turned into months, the investigation continued. But progress became increasingly difficult. And then, nearly 10 months after Tara disappeared, something happened hundreds of miles away that would shock the entire country. The discovery of a mysterious photograph would transform the case into one of the most haunting mysteries in American history. Nearly 10 months after the disappearance of Tara Calico, a chilling discovery hundreds of miles away would bring the case back into the national spotlight. On June 15, 1989, in the quiet coastal town of Port St. Joe, a woman was pulling into the parking lot of a convenience store. As she stepped out of her vehicle, something lying face down on the asphalt caught her attention. It was a Polaroid photograph. At first glance, it appeared ordinary. However, when the woman turned the photograph over, what she saw immediately alarmed her. The image showed a young woman and a small boy lying on what appeared to be the floor of a van. Both of them had their arms tied behind their backs, and black duct tape had been placed over their mouths. The scene in the photograph was deeply disturbing. The woman quickly realized that the photograph might be evidence of a serious crime. She immediately contacted the police. According to witnesses at the scene, the photograph had been lying exactly where a white, windowless cargo van had just been parked moments earlier. The van had already driven away before anyone noticed the image on the ground. Witnesses described the driver of the van as a white male in his 30s who had a mustache. Unfortunately, by the time authorities responded and attempted to locate the vehicle, it had already disappeared. When investigators examined the photograph more closely, several details caught their attention. The young woman in the image had long brown hair and appeared to have a scar on her lower right leg. This detail was significant because Tara Calico also had a scar in the same location. Next to the woman in the photograph was a paperback book. The book was identified as My Sweet Adrena, a novel written by author V.C. Andrews. According to Tara's family, this book had been one of Tara's favorites. When the photograph was shown on television news programs, Tara's mother, Patty, was immediately contacted by friends and acquaintances who believed the young woman in the image resembled Tara. Patty traveled to Florida to see the original photograph in person. For hours, she carefully studied the image under different lighting conditions, comparing the features of the girl in the photograph to pictures of her daughter. She considered the possibility that Tara might look different after months in captivity. After examining the photograph, Patty reached a painful but hopeful conclusion. She believed the girl in the photograph was her daughter. The image quickly spread across national media. Major television programs and newspapers across the United States began reporting on the case. Shows such as Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted featured the photograph, hoping that someone might recognize the individuals or identify the van. For a brief moment, it seemed possible that the photograph might lead investigators directly to Tara. However, the photograph also raised many questions. Experts from several forensic institutions examined the image. Specialists from Scotland Yard in the United Kingdom analyzed the facial features of the girl in the photograph and concluded that there was a high probability that the person could indeed be Tara Calico. Other experts disagreed. Analysts at Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico conducted their own study of the photograph. After comparing facial measurements and bone structure, they concluded that the girl in the image did not match Tara. The Federal Bureau of Investigation also conducted an analysis, but ultimately stated that their results were inconclusive. Another important detail emerged during the investigation. Representatives from the Polaroid Corporation determined that the type of film used to create the photograph had not been available to the public until after May 1989. This meant the photograph must have been taken several months after Tara disappeared. If the girl truly was Tara, it suggested that she might have been held captive during that entire time. Investigators also began examining the identity of the young boy in the photograph. Initially, some people believed he might be Michael Henley, a 9-year-old boy from New Mexico who had also disappeared while on a camping trip. Michael's family believed the resemblance was strong. However, in June 1990, Michael Henley's remains were discovered in a remote mountain area. Authorities concluded that he had died from exposure after becoming lost in the wilderness. This meant he could not have been the boy in the photograph. Other theories suggested that the boy might have been Johnny Gosch, a newspaper delivery boy who vanished in Iowa in 1982. But investigators were never able to confirm this theory. In the months that followed, 2 additional Polaroid photographs surfaced. The first appeared in July 1989 near a construction site in California. It showed a close-up image of a girl's face with duct tape covering her mouth. The photograph was blurry, and it was impossible to determine the identity of the person. The second photograph surfaced in early 1990. It showed a woman loosely bound with gauze and wearing large black framed glasses while sitting next to a man on what appeared to be a train seat. Although Tara Calico initially believed the woman in these photographs might also be her daughter, investigators later suspected that the images might have been cruel hoaxes created by someone seeking attention. Over time, the Polaroid photograph became one of the most haunting images associated with missing person cases in the United States. Even decades later, it continues to circulate online, raising questions that may never be fully answered. As the years passed, the investigation into Tara's disappearance slowed. Without a body, a suspect, or conclusive physical evidence, the case gradually grew cold. In 1998, nearly 10 years after Tara disappeared, a judge officially declared her legally dead. The ruling stated that the likely cause of death was homicide. However, the lack of physical evidence meant that no one had been arrested or charged with the crime. The tragedy deeply affected Tara's family. Her mother, Patty, spent years searching for answers and speaking publicly about the case. She never stopped hoping that one day the truth about her daughter's fate would be revealed. Sadly, Patty passed away in 2006 without ever learning what truly happened to Tara. 2 years later, in 2008, a surprising development occurred. On the 20th anniversary of Tara's disappearance, the sheriff of Valencia County held a public press conference. He announced that investigators believed they knew the identities of individuals responsible for Tara's death. According to the sheriff, 2 teenage boys from the local area had been driving a truck along Highway 47 on the day Tara disappeared. Investigators believe the boys may have accidentally struck Tara with their vehicle while she was riding her bicycle. The sheriff claimed that after the collision, Tara threatened to report the incident to the police. Panicking, the boys allegedly abducted her and later killed her. Authorities believed that other individuals may have helped dispose of the body. However, the announcement shocked the community for another reason. No arrests were made. The sheriff stated that without physical evidence such as a body, it would be extremely difficult to bring criminal charges against the suspects. Over the years, rumors circulated throughout Belen suggesting that many local residents knew the identities of the individuals involved. Some even speculated that powerful families in the area had protected those responsible. In 2013, another unsettling claim surfaced. A man named Henry Brown, who was reportedly terminally ill, gave a statement before his death. Brown claimed that shortly after Tara disappeared, he had been told by a neighbor that several young men had accidentally struck Tara with a truck. According to Brown's statement, the group allegedly abducted Tara, assaulted her, murdered her, and buried her body in a remote location. One theory suggested that her remains might be hidden inside an abandoned mine shaft in the desert outside Belen. Years later, investigators began re-examining this possibility. In 2021, law enforcement obtained a search warrant to investigate a suspect's property. However, officials did not release details about what evidence, if any, had been discovered. Then, in June 2023, authorities announced another major update. Investigators revealed that they had gathered enough evidence to submit the entire case file to prosecutors for possible criminal charges. The case was being reviewed by the district attorney to determine whether it could move forward to prosecution. Despite these developments, no arrests have been publicly announced. Investigators continue to search for new evidence that might finally solve the mystery of Tara Calico's disappearance. Some believe that the truth may still lie somewhere in the deserts of New Mexico. For Tara's family, the loss has been immeasurable. Decades have passed without answers, leaving behind a painful void that can never truly be filled. The story of Tara Calico serves as a powerful reminder of how quickly an ordinary day can turn into a tragedy, A simple bike ride on a quiet road changed the lives of an entire family forever. Her case also reminds communities of the importance of vigilance, justice, and compassion for families who continue searching for loved ones who never came home. Even today, the question remains unanswered. What truly happened to Tara Calico?